Good evening, everyone. It's Dr. Manny. I'm back messing with this audio again. So this particular idea is less well developed, so it's kind of harder to write and probably not even um, that easy to understand as explained verbally. So, but it's something that's um, the sentence used for it is more feelings than words. It's stuff that you can feel, but you can't put to words. And a lot of times, alexithymic, which means no words for emotions. So we're already predisposed to not being able to put ourselves in abstract emotional space. So the concept toxic guilt basically is really it's a concept I kind of invented, the toxic guilt concept, to explain when you get. So the audio is breaking up a lot. I think it's thanks, Dr. Charmaine. I think I'm attributing it to the fact that it's new. It's a new platform, and so there's probably still working out. But my body is wired. I tend to jump on stuff if it looks exciting and the opportunity right and so rusty. So I'm thinking it's a Facebook bug. Let me know if you heard that or if the audio broke up during that too. Okay, so are you able to hear the idea? Just stacky like 1970s, 1960s AM driving through the mountains or what? Okay, well I'll keep going and hopefully the idea is able to come across. Um, yeah, hopefully that doesn't. You are likely right. Heard most of it. Okay, cool. But yeah, now I'm prone to like jumping on the technology while it's clunky. A lot of technology I've done in the past has fit into obsolescence that we're looking for. Stuff like, I jumped on that when other people were like on CDs, you know, and MP3s. Yeah, like driving to a mountain. So I'll I'll talk like the guys do on AM radio, so that the concepts are spread out and that you can think through the static. You use the static as a memory method. We just use that as quiet noise to help spark your brain in like a different way of thinking. There you go. That's a good use of space. Okay, so toxic guilt is a concept I came up with to that it's a sort of guilt that we learned through the culture when we were younger in situations where love and guilt were conflated as a mechanism of behavioral conditioning. Um, and it's really it's it's in the same semantic category as conditional love. Maybe it's born in specific tricks for you to look for express love to it. But as we get older, sometimes it gets taken for granted, and parents, during stress-based calculations, especially parents with anxious attachment or even avoidant attachment, what they do is they use the expression of love on the surface as currency for reward achievement. And they demoralizing. And the demoralizing a lot of times it's instead of loving, the way they express love is that they guilt a child or they guilt each other. It's communication that's indirect and unclear, a lot of assumption, a lot of connotations, a lot of misunderstanding. But when you have that type of cycle, what happens is you develop a style in which you conflate love and guilt. Now, this happens as a child, and you do this during your childlike mind. As you get older, you still associate guilt-based approaches to completing tasks. It leads to a certain type of procrastination where instead of stepping into the task, you separate work from play one. So when it's time to work, you go to your serious work mode, and you have a negative mood that you associate with approach your work, and you get serious. You bottle up your creativity, and you a lot of times the way I used to function is I used to wait to be inspired, and wait to be inspired at midnight the night before a paper that I should have started 2 weeks ago is due. And so this spike of just guilt would kick in that was just familiar. This was how I put myself in a loved state. I would guilt myself into being inspired. I would create essentially this toxic seeking art. It would be, all expressions of self, whether it was a paper I was writing, or a piece of music I was learning, or ever just a test I was studying for. It was just, a cortisol bath of just sprinting to the gates. You can imagine this doesn't work in med school. So one of the key things that's important to understand is that until you understand and face toxic guilt, you're driven by this obsessive passion, this passion that you don't really control, this passion that you wait to show up out of nowhere, as opposed to one you cultivate, one that can leave at any moment, and one that, quite frankly, has a background anxiety with it and a lot of unclosed loops. It involves a bit of impulsivity, a bit of poor planning, and really it keeps you from enjoying intentional, creative, higher self, flow-based, what they call hedonic passion. It's passion in alignment with your values, passion that happens as you do the work, but as you do the work at a more leisurely pace. So, toxic guilt, to get to that state, what you have to do is go back and think about how the guilt came to be. And you don't necessarily have to do all the deep analysis, because a lot of times we get caught in the analysis and we don't get the growth and we don't get the change. What you really want to do is you want to think back to the times when you were conflating love with guilt. When someone loved you, was so stressed out, that's the message that love and guilt were the same thing, that they were exhausted, and you associated busy, exhausted work, miserable, not necessarily, harried behind deadline type of vibration, that type of energy with love. When did you conflate the two? You got to go back to that part of your life, and you have to look at you as an adult. And as an adult, you have to look at the reality of, this person now, these people now, and what their intentions were. So it's time to go back and think that part of your life and change the way you learn, change the way you approach knowledge, change the way you approach work, change the false dichotomy between love and create a dichotomy between love and guilt, and eliminate the dichotomy between work and play, the false dichotomy that you created as part of this toxic guilt. This passion that was a motivator at one point that no longer serves you. You got to let it go. Let go of the toxic obsessive passion so that you can step into a broader, more positive, more supportive, just love-based creativity and insight, a patience, a faith with like yourself. Because what toxic guilt does is it alienates you from yourself. It creates these and this sounds all, whatever, hand-holding and whatever. But when you say you alienate you from yourself, it's basically your brain creates these representations of you and representations of other people. And while you're sleeping, while you're dreaming, all the things that you experience are just your imagination running in the background as possible worry, possible guilt, just simulating people that you love most, that you interact with the most, and what they would do in certain situations. And this is a lot of churning to be doing, and it's toxic. So when you alienate yourself, you separate yourself from yourself, what happens is you get your passion from creating this model of how you were driven as an earlier, less aware child. You get this toxic mind. It's not graceful. It's not learning. It's a fight flight. It's a cortisol bath in your brain, and it's predictable. You don't know when it's coming. You're waiting to be inspired, as opposed to making an intentional choice to step into creativity, step into reaching inwards, seeing the toxic for what it is, labeling it, separating love from guilt, and being able to reach within yourself and love the work, because you haven't created this false dichotomy between work and play that you're driving every time you're doing this last minute Pavlovian, stress-based, isolated, driven, lonely at the top based model of love and, well, of toxic guilt, of passion, obsessive passion. The only way to flow is with hedonic passion. Hedonic passion is based off unconditional love. I know this stuff starts to get like in that zone, but really it's just a semantic map of ideas. It's a set of ideas that when you reach for them, and if you actually listen and simulate them, they put you in abstract mind, they put you in a semantic space of spirit, of inspiration, of creativity, of openness, of empathy. Just that abstract space, that optimistic creative space, it's neurochemically better than that cortisol bath of the illicit. So when you go in and you're looking at unconditional love, if you feel guilty for wanting to deserve the love, that's the time at which you have to explore that. That turning away and being a trigger that gets you to get in ways that are so scripted and rigid. What you want to do is face it, be quiet in it, and make a practice of spending time with guilt by recognizing and labeling it for what it is, which instantly makes it more tolerable. Because you can stay in it, and if you can stay in it, and you listen to it, and you deconstruct it, your adult mind, and it becomes nonsensical. You separate it from the intention of the person, the event, and you don't necessarily have to rationalize. You have to make it all mathematically. You don't have to make it all grown up or serious, but you can pull it empirically more towards something that serves you better as an adult, something that you recognize, you see it as a signal, and you see yourself thinking, so you don't suppress it. You don't fight it, don't ignore it, you don't let it eat you alive and make your brain into cortisol stew. So breaking toxic guilt is not an easy thing. It's a daily practice. For me, when I get hit with guilt, I just it used to drive me, but now it just pretty much, if I let it toxic, it's for me and it's not productive. So I get mine early. I'm not young like in college anymore, where I can like see it coming, go drink and party with friends. So I have to face it, capture it, journal it. And something about putting it in writing makes it less of an anxiety and more of a it's a sublimation. It makes it more of a symbolic entity that exists outside myself, and that allows me to disidentify from it. It allows me to step back from it and observe my mind in the words in the on the paper. I actually prefer the audio medium because I don't look back. I just put it out there, and whichever part you can come to discuss with me, right? Yeah, it's less dense in the writing. Semantically more dense. It's like prosody and intonation, but I think the writing it's a different exercise modality. So going back to erasing toxic guilt, sometimes my water and I let it. The key thing is that you have to face the guilt and label what it is. This is guilt. This is guilt conflated with love. This is possibly how it became part of my identity, part of my motivators, part of my drivers, part of my story. And then you have to express it in a way that is not destructive, in a way that, well, I guess I also review that you want to understand that if you know better now, you know the intention of the person. If the person knows better now, if the person expresses regret, if the person is apologetic, then there's forgiveness. If you to forgive other people, you don't have to bank forget where you get amnesic and come back and do the same thing again. But you can take the positive learning from the situation and not necessarily go to that negative state every time you think of it. And that way you limit yourself for whatever interpretation of the situation you have or had back then, the understanding of the intention back then, the understanding of the love that was communicated, and separate the two and set yourself free in that way. Yeah, that's how you erase toxic guilt. I'm thinking like my abstract folks will enjoy this more than my more linear thinkers, right? So yeah, thanks for joining me. Dr. Manny, I'm out.